When God speaks into the depth of your spirit, it is not a whisper that passes through your mind and disappears. It is a force that shakes the very foundation of your life. And today, God is declaring a message that will pierce the confusion, silence the doubts, and open your eyes to the truth you have been wrestling with. I remove those who truly hated you. You may not have understood why certain people fell away, why some relationships shattered, why some connections collapsed in your hands, even when you tried to hold them together. But God saw what your heart could not see. God saw what your kindness could not discern. God saw what your loyalty refused to accept. And God, in His mercy, removed those who hid poison behind their smiles. There are moments in life when you cry over the very people God is rescuing you from. You mourn for those God pulled out of your path. You feel abandoned when, in reality, God is protecting you. You see the loss, but God sees the danger. You see the absence, but God sees the trap. And when God says, I remove those who truly hated you, it is not a punishment, it is an act of divine deliverance. You didn't lose them. God took them away. God does not remove what is meant to bless you. God only removes what is secretly trying to break you. Some people did not walk away. They were pushed out by the hand of God. And you must understand that when God intervenes in this way, it is because the hidden intentions of their hearts were about to harm you more deeply than you could imagine. They were speaking well of you in public, yet cursing your name in private. They were applauding your progress, yet hoping for your downfall. They were standing beside you, yet envying every step you took. So God, in His infinite wisdom, allowed a separation that felt painful but was necessary for your destiny. There were people attached to your life who were never assigned to your future. They were observers, not partners. They were temporary chapters, not lifelong characters. And the moment their presence began to contaminate your spirit, God began to remove them. You prayed for God to bless you, and He answered by subtracting what was blocking the blessing. You prayed for God to open doors, and He answered by removing those who kept closing them. You prayed for peace, and God answered by pulling out the source of your turmoil. Sometimes God protects you not by adding something, but by taking something or someone away. You must understand this truth deeply. God is not emotional when it comes to your destiny. God is strategic. God is deliberate. God is intentional. And when God sees that someone is draining your strength, disturbing your mind, weakening your faith, or delaying your growth, He does not hesitate. God removes what threatens His purpose in your life. God does not negotiate with danger. He eliminates it. Many of you have been confused because you thought those people loved you. You thought they cared. You thought they were for you. But God saw the hatred hidden in their hearts. God saw the jealousy they tried to mask. God saw the resentment they carried every time you succeeded. Their outward behavior deceived you, but their motives never deceived God. And when their intentions reached a point where they could no longer stay without hindering what God is building in you, God stepped in and severed the tie. So if you are still asking, God, why did this person leave me? Why did they betray me? Why did they suddenly turn cold? Hear this. God is answering your question right now. God removed them because their presence would have poisoned your next season. God removed them because He heard conversations you were not aware of. God removed them because He saw traps you could not see. God removed them because He saw the hatred they carried behind the politeness they displayed. And let me speak to the depth of your spirit. You must stop chasing what God has released from your life. You must not run after what God has removed. When God closes a door, it is not your job to knock on it again. When God takes a person out of your life, do not resurrect the connection through your emotions. Your heart may be tender, but your destiny is too valuable. Stop trying to hold on to what God used His own hands to cut away. The truth is, some people were never meant to walk with you into the place God is taking you. They could not handle your growth. They could not celebrate your elevation. They could not stomach your spiritual progress. As long as you stayed small, they stayed comfortable. As long as you stayed quiet, they stayed confident. As long as you stayed wounded, they stayed in control. But the moment God began to lift you, the moment God began to strengthen you, the moment God began to restore you, their true feelings emerged. And God saw their envy rising like smoke from their hearts. Long before you sensed anything, that is why God removed them. You must not misinterpret divine removal as rejection. When God removes, it is protection. When God removes, it is preparation. When God removes, it is elevation. God never subtracts without the intention to multiply. God never isolates you without the intention to expand you. God never allows loss unless something greater is being positioned to enter. And this is why you must walk with confidence, not confusion. God has not abandoned you. God has secured you. There were seasons in your life when you begged for certain people to stay. You pleaded for them to understand you. You lowered your worth for them. You silenced your pain for them. But God watched. And God said, enough. When you could not walk away out of emotional attachment, God removed them out of divine protection. He did not wait for you to be strong enough. He intervened when He knew you were unable to discern the danger. And this is the love of God, this fierce, protective, unrelenting love that guards your destiny even when you do not know how to guard yourself. God's love is not gentle when your future is under threat. God's love becomes fire. God's love becomes a shield. God's love becomes a barrier between you and every hidden attack. When God removes someone from your life, it is not always loud, dramatic, or noticeable. Sometimes it happens quietly, subtly, almost invisibly. One day the connection feels strong, and the next day it begins to fade. Their messages slow down, their presence weakens, their interest dries up, and you begin wondering, what did I do wrong? But in truth, it was not your fault. It was God's intervention. God began to peel back the layers of that relationship because something underneath was dangerous for your spirit. God did not want you entangled in a bond that would suffocate your future. God did not want you trapped in an environment that was contaminating your peace. So God removed them before the damage could reach your heart. God sees betrayal long before it happens. God sees manipulation long before it is exposed. God sees fake loyalty long before it collapses. There were people who smiled at you while sharpening words meant to destroy you. They claimed they wanted the best for you, yet behind closed doors, they spoke against you. They pretended to support you, yet secretly celebrated every setback you endured. But you did not see these hidden intentions. You did not hear the quiet conversations. You did not feel the subtle shifts in their heart. You trusted their presence because your heart was pure. But God, in His infinite knowledge, saw the betrayal forming before the knife ever touched your back. That is why God removed them. Some of the people God removed were not obvious enemies. They were disguised as companions. They blended into your circle like shadows. They clapped when you spoke, but inside they compared themselves to you. They followed you, but not because they believed in you, because they wanted to monitor you. Their hearts were not inclined toward your well-being. Their motives were tangled with envy, insecurity, and ambition. They were not in your life to grow with you. They were there to drain you slowly. So when God said, I removed those who hated you, He was revealing that He eliminated the threat before you recognized it. Many times, God removes people not because they actively harmed you, but because their presence was incompatible with the destiny He is preparing you for. Their mindset could not grow with your calling. Their perspective was too small for the magnitude of what God is doing within you. Some people were simply not designed to access the next level God is leading you into. Their thinking was too limited. Their character was too inconsistent. Their loyalty was too divided. And because they could not walk with you into the future, God separated them in the present. But here is the profound truth. When God removes someone out of your path, it is because your spirit is elevating. Growth demands separation. As you ascend, not everyone can handle the altitude. Some relationships cannot survive the pressure of spiritual transformation. The more God expands your purpose, the more He filters your circle. Elevation exposes instability. As God raises you, He reveals who was truly with you and who was merely comfortable with your old season. And when the intentions of a person no longer match the direction of your destiny, God steps in and removes them before they can hinder what He is building inside you. You must understand something deeply. Not every loss is a wound. Some losses are operations. God, the divine surgeon, cuts away what is toxic before it spreads. God removes what threatens the health of your spirit. God separates you from what would weaken the foundation He is constructing in your life. Sometimes the removal feels painful, but the pain is evidence that God is healing you, not harming you. The sting of separation is merely the anesthesia before the revelation. And when God says, I remove those who hated you, it is not simply to comfort you, it is to awaken you. God wants you to recognize that your life is not governed by human hands. People cannot control your destiny. Their departure does not interrupt God's plan. In fact, their departure often activates it. This means you must release the fear of losing people. When God is the one directing your path, no human exit can derail your purpose. You are not dependent on their approval, their support, or their understanding. Your destiny is anchored in God alone, and God does not need unanimous agreement to bless you. Think back to the moments when you felt abandoned. Those moments were not indications of weakness. They were signs of divine transition. God had to isolate you so He could elevate you. God had to pull you out of certain relationships so He could position you for higher assignments. God had to silence certain voices so you could hear His more clearly. And God had to remove certain people so your spirit could breathe again. Many of the people God removed from your life carried intentions that were incompatible with the purity of your calling. They did not hate you because of who you were. They hated you because of what God placed inside you. They hated your strength because it highlighted their weakness. They hated your faith because it exposed their fear. They hated your progress because it reminded them of their stagnation. And because their hearts were threatened by your purpose, God removed them to protect the seed He planted in you. Their departure is not a loss, it is a sign that God is taking you somewhere they could not follow, a sign that God is preparing you for a season where only those aligned with your purpose will remain, a sign that God is clearing your path for greater connections, deeper relationships, and pure support. When God removes those who hated you, He is also creating space for those who will honor, uplift, and respect what He is doing in your life. There comes a moment in your journey when you must realize that God is not only protecting you from the hatred of others, God is protecting the purity of what He placed inside you. The calling on your life is too valuable to be contaminated by the wrong voices. The anointing on your spirit is too precious to be suffocated by people who secretly resent it. God does not merely remove those who hate you, God shields the spiritual treasure He entrusted to you. And when people approach that treasure with polluted intentions, God intervenes with a decisive hand. There were individuals in your life who appeared harmless, yet their presence slowly diluted your strength. They were not loud enemies, they were subtle distractions. They confused your emotions, clouded your clarity, and weakened your focus. These were the people who left you feeling drained after every conversation. These were the people who made you doubt yourself without directly attacking you. Their influence was not destructive in one moment. It was destructive over time. But God, who sees beyond the surface, understood that their subtle negativity would contaminate your purpose, and so God removed them before their quiet poison became a permanent wound. Some people God removed were connected to your past, not your future. They represented who you used to be, not who you are becoming. They were familiar to the old version of you, but completely incompatible with the person God is shaping. And because their presence kept pulling you backward, God had to break the tie. You may have felt nostalgic, believing those connections held sentimental value, but God knew they were anchoring you to a chapter that must remain closed. God does not allow your destiny to be chained to outdated relationships. When God elevates you, He cuts ties with anything that hinders your transformation. And let this truth settle deeply into your spirit. Some people did not hate you because of what you did. They hated you because of what God planned for you. They perceived the greatness within you before you even recognized it. They sensed your spiritual potential before you understood it. They felt intimidated by the calling that was still in its infancy. This is why their behavior changed as soon as God began to awaken your gifts. They did not rejoice when you grew. They grew uncomfortable. They did not celebrate when God strengthened you. They felt threatened. And God, knowing their hearts, removed them before their insecurity could damage your development. Often the hatred people carry toward you is silent. It hides behind courtesy. It hides behind politeness. It hides behind casual conversations. You may never detect it because it does not always manifest in visible actions. But God sees every movement of the heart. God hears every unspoken thought. God discerns every hidden intention. And when the quiet hatred of others begins to interfere with the divine path He laid out for you, God does not remain still. He acts. God removes. Not because He wants to distance you from people, but because He wants to safeguard the destiny He wrote for you. Long before you were aware of it, there were people who smiled at you while quietly resenting your resilience. They did not understand how you kept rising, how you kept surviving, how you kept moving forward despite everything that should have broken you. They did not see the hand of God lifting you every time life tried to push you down. Their confusion turned into jealousy, and their jealousy turned into hidden hostility. But God, who watches every corner of your journey, recognized a shift in their spirit. And when their internal hatred became a threat to your external progress, God removed them. Some losses feel like heartbreak, but in truth, they are breakthroughs. You may have cried over someone God separated you from, but heaven rejoiced because the removal released you from a hidden cage. Think of the times you tried to hold on to people who were no longer aligned with your journey. You invested your energy, your love, your time, trying to salvage connections that were spiritually expired. You fought for relationships God had already ended. And yet, in His mercy, God allowed those connections to crumble so you could be free. God does not free you from bondage, only to leave you in emotional chains. That separation was your liberation. There were individuals God removed because their influence was shaping you into someone you were not meant to become. Their presence twisted your thinking, altered your perspective, and weakened your spiritual discernment. God saw that if you stayed connected to them, you would drift farther from your calling. So God intervened. He shut down conversations. He closed doors. He disrupted patterns. He ended cycles you could not break yourself. Their exit was not rejection, it was realignment. God placed you back on the path meant for your purpose. Do not underestimate the wisdom of God in removing people what feels like abandonment. And is often God's way of upgrading your life. God does not leave empty spaces. He creates openings. The people God removed were occupying positions in your life that were meant for those who would truly value your spirit. They were holding the space where loyal allies should stand. They were sitting in seats intended for genuine supporters. God cleared them out because He knows that the next season of your life requires people whose hearts are sincere, whose spirits are aligned with yours, and whose intentions honor the calling He placed upon you. Think of how many times you were loyal to people who never honored your loyalty. You gave them trust they did not deserve. You gave them kindness they did not appreciate. You forgave offenses they never apologized for. You lifted them when they would never lift you. You defended them when they would never defend you. But God watched. God saw your purity. God saw your effort. God saw your sincerity. And God removed them not only because they hated you, but because they were unworthy of the heart you carry. Their absence is not a void. It is divine order. God is restructuring your life. God is clearing your path. God is cleansing your atmosphere. God is refining your inner circle. And anything that contaminates the purity of your spirit cannot stay. Anything that drains your strength cannot remain. Anything that disrupts your peace cannot survive the presence of God in your life. Removal is not a setback. It is preparation for greater alignment, deeper purpose, and higher elevation. There is a moment in every person's life when God's protection feels painful before it feels purposeful. You look at the empty spaces where people once stood, and you wonder why God allowed such separation. But what you call empty, God calls purified. What you call loss, God calls alignment. God is not merely removing people who hated you. God is removing anything that compromises the purity of your spiritual journey. You must understand that divine removal is not random, it is surgical. God does not cut where there is no infection. God does not separate where there is no spiritual threat. When God removes, it is because something in that relationship was quietly interfering with the destiny He designed for you. Some of the people God pulled out of your life were going to turn against you in moments of weakness. They would have used your vulnerabilities as ammunition. They would have twisted your trust into an advantage. They would have taken your kindness for granted and your openness as an opportunity to wound you. You did not see it because your heart was pure. You loved sincerely. You trusted genuinely. But God, who sees the end from the beginning, recognized the future betrayal long before the first sign appeared. So God stepped into the timeline of your life and removed them before their hatred could mature into harm. There were people whose presence slowed down your spiritual momentum. They were not evil, but they were spiritually stagnant. They could not go where God is taking you. They could not understand the depth of your calling because their vision was limited to what was familiar. And when you are called to rise, you cannot remain tied to those who fear elevation. The fear of others can infect your courage. Their hesitation can tamper with your obedience. Their doubt can weaken your confidence. And God knew that if you stayed connected to them, the weight of their unbelief would eventually influence your direction. So God removed them to ensure nothing diluted the faith He placed within you. Many of the people God removed were not just hindering your progress, they were harming your spiritual atmosphere. Their words carried negativity that slowly seeped into your spirit. Their conversations, Paul, looted your peace. Their energy disrupted the calm God was cultivating within you. You were adapting to disorder that God never intended for you to normalize. And when God saw that their influence was overshadowing your inner clarity, He intervened. God will not allow the wrong voices to have permanent access to your life. When He notices that someone's presence is interfering with your spiritual equilibrium, He cuts that connection decisively. And let this settle in your heart. God removes people not only for what they have done, but for what they refuse to become. Some individuals in your life refuse to grow with you. They refuse to rise with you. They refuse to expand their thinking, deepen their character, or strengthen their integrity. And because they refused to grow, their presence became incompatible with the new version of you God is unveiling. You cannot progress spiritually while remaining tied to those who are committed to staying spiritually idle. When the direction of your life changes, the people surrounding you must shift as well. And when they refuse to shift, God removes them. Some of you are holding on to the memories of people God already moved out of your destiny. You replay conversations, rehearse moments, and cling to emotional connections that no longer serve you. But God is saying, release what I have removed. You cannot step into the fullness of your future while embracing fragments of your past. If God removed them, it means they were part of a chapter, not the whole story. They were a lesson, not a lifetime. They were a stepping stone, not a foundation. Stop treating temporary characters as permanent fixtures in your destiny. God removed them because their presence had reached its expiration date. God also removed certain individuals because your spirit outgrew their intentions. You began to hunger for deeper truth, purer purpose, and a stronger connection with God. And as your spirit expanded, their motives became exposed. People who once felt comfortable around you suddenly felt threatened because you were no longer feeding their insecurities. You were no longer validating their weakness. You were no longer dimming your light to make them feel brighter. And because your elevation challenged their complacency, their hearts turned against you. God saw the shift in their intentions, and He removed them before their resentment could contaminate your peace. There were some who disliked you simply because you carried something they could not understand. Your strength irritated their weaknesses. Your endurance unsettled their fear. Your faith disrupted their doubt. You reminded them of what they were refusing to become. They did not hate you because of what you lacked. They hated you because of what you carried. The spiritual glow God placed upon you made their inner darkness uncomfortable. And instead of seeking growth, they sought to silence, diminish, or undermine you. But God, who defends those He chooses, stepped in and removed them. Some of the people God removed were interfering with the blessings He planned for you. You were praying for new doors while the wrong people were blocking the path. You were praying for opportunities while their presence created spiritual interference. You were praying for abundance while their energy attracted limitation. And God, in His mercy, cleared them out before they corrupted the blessings He was preparing to release. God does not allow the wrong spirit to occupy the space meant for divine favor. When God is preparing to elevate you, He first purifies the environment around you. And understand this powerful truth: removal is a form of promotion. You may not feel it in the moment, but God is moving you into a space where your spirit can thrive without sap. Altars, where your purpose can unfold without interference, where your peace can flourish without contamination. Every removal is making room for something aligned, something pure, something ordained by God. The absence you feel is simply the sound of God rearranging your life for the better. There are moments in life when the absence of certain people feels like a wound, a void, a silence that echoes in your soul. And yet, that silence is the voice of God speaking louder than words ever could. That absence is God's protective hand, shielding you from hidden animosity, shielding you from betrayal, shielding you from setbacks you cannot yet perceive. You may feel loss, but God sees liberation. You may feel abandonment, but God sees alignment. The people God removed were not accidental casualties of life. They were deliberate adjustments orchestrated by the one who knows every step you will take and every challenge you will face. Some people carry hatred so quietly that it becomes invisible, even to those closest to them. They smile when you enter the room, but inside they simmer with envy. They speak encouraging words, but their hearts rejoice when you stumble. Their loyalty is selective. Their affection is calculated. Their admiration is conditional. And God, who discerns what the human eye cannot see, knows when such a presence endangers the sanctity of your spirit. That is why God intervenes. God does not allow hidden hatred to fester and destroy your destiny. When necessary, God removes the threat before it can manifest in your life. There are people who have left you because they were incompatible with the frequency of your soul. Some connections last only as long as both hearts are aligned in purpose. When your calling begins to expand, when your faith begins to deepen, when your life begins to resonate with the presence of God in ways that demand clarity and really, some people can no longer keep up. They are left behind. Not because God is cruel, but because God is wise. Their path was not meant to intersect with the trajectory of your future. And the moment they became misaligned, God's hand guided them away, even when your heart resisted. The removal of certain people is also a declaration of God's sovereignty over your life. There is no coincidence in who stays and who leaves. There is no random occurrence in the bonds that break. Every exit, every sudden silence, every disconnect is a deliberate act of divine orchestration. God is rearranging the pieces of your life with perfect precision. What looks like abandonment is actually a realignment. What looks like loss is actually liberation. God is proving that He is in control. Not the circumstances, not the opinions of others, not even the hands of those who meant harm. God is the one directing every step of your journey. You must also understand this. Some of the hatred you have encountered was never meant to affect your heart. It was meant to reveal it. God allowed you to experience the concealed animosity of others so that you could recognize who belongs in your circle and who does not. Some people were tests of your discernment. Some were opportunities to sharpen your spiritual awareness. Some were mirrors reflecting what exists in the world outside your faith, showing you that not everyone who smiles at you carries good intentions. And when God removes them, He is not simply protecting you. He is teaching you to walk wisely in a world where hidden enemies exist. There were people God removed because their presence would have delayed your obedience. Their influence could have caused hesitation. Their words could have caused doubt, and their energy could have caused distraction. You were meant to move forward with faith, not negotiate with fear or compromise with jealousy. God saw that the resistance they carried in their hearts would eventually become resistance in your spirit if allowed to remain. And because obedience is required to fulfill the destiny God has written for you, God intervened, removed them, and cleared the path for unimpeded faith. Some departures feel abrupt, leaving questions and confusion, but they are evidence of divine timing. The moment you wonder why God allowed a separation, remember that He is orchestrating a movement you cannot yet see. The people God removed were never designed to complete the journey with you. They were temporary instruments to test your heart, challenge your patience, and prepare you for the greater connections that are waiting. Their exit is a sign that God is making room for those who are aligned with the frequency of your calling, those who will uplift, support, and enhance the path God has assigned to you. And hear this clearly, God does not remove without purpose. Every individual who leaves carries a reason that your mind may not yet comprehend, but your spirit will understand. Some departures are cleansing, some departures are protection, some departures are divine preparation for the blessings that are approaching. Your responsibility is not to understand every detail, it is to trust the hand of God that orchestrates all things perfectly. Your heart must accept the removal, your mind must align with the wisdom behind it, and your spirit must rise above any resentment, confusion, or grief that threatens to block your elevation. The removal of those who hated you also carries a profound message. God values your peace more than the approval of others. You were never created to live according to the comfort of human validation. You were not meant to carry the burden of someone else's jealousy, resentment, or hostility. When God removes the toxic from your life, He is reminding you that your spirit matters, your clarity matters, your calling matters, and any person who cannot honor that is not meant to stay. Do not mourn their departure. Do not wish them back into the sphere God has lifted you above. Their absence is not a punishment, it is protection, and it is proof that God is positioning you for victory. There were people in your life who misrepresented themselves. They claimed loyalty while secretly harboring envy. They claimed friendship while secretly wishing you failure. They smiled at your victories but rejoiced in your defeats. And God, who sees beyond the mask, removed them because their hidden hatred threatened your peace. What you could not discern with human understanding, God discerned with divine wisdom. He saw the seeds of division, the whisper of envy, and the subtle undermining that would eventually impede your progress. And God acted. God does not wait for betrayal to become visible before He intervenes. He removes the threat before it materializes because He is a God of foresight and protection.